In this episode, I talk about tracking your spending, how to cut back in your budget, and where to park large sums of money for big purchases.
I go beyond the philosophy, and I give you real life application. I am Coach Nino Villa.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode number 5 of the Ask Coach Nino Villa show. I wanted to start this show off with a pretty big announcement, and it doesn't have anything to do with my new digs. I wanted to actually share with each and every one of you that my wife and I paid off yet another student loan last week. And so I wanted to share that with you in hopes that it will inspire you to continue on this debt-free journey with us. So let's get right into your questions.
Rachael asks, how do you track spending throughout the month?
Hey Rachel, thanks for the question. I think you're going to be really surprised at the answer though. The answer is my wife and I don't track the spending for any category in which we have to spend throughout the month. So let me give you an example. Our groceries, our gasoline for the month, clothing when we have it. Each of these are categories where you probably don't spend your entire budgeted amount in one outing. So for example, my wife and I, we grab $200 for groceries every pay period, every 2 weeks. And then we go to the grocery store maybe 2, 3, probably no more than 4 times throughout the 2-week pay period. But we don't spend all $200 at once, right? It's $50 here or $75 there or what have you. And so for those categories, I strongly encourage you to have cash envelopes. Because think about this, if you were trying to track in software or in a spreadsheet electronically, your grocery fund and your gasoline for the pay period or for the month and clothing, and so you had all this money in the bank and you were going to use your debit card and you budgeted $200 and then you only spent $55, but that was one category, and then for another category you had a $100 budget but you spent $25. Now you're looking at your bank statement trying to understand of the money that's in there, how much is left for groceries, how much is left for gasoline, how much is left for clothing, and it gets really convoluted really quickly. So instead, what I would suggest that you do is when you get paid, pay whatever bills you're going to pay online, like your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, pay those bills. And when you budget for those, you're paying the entire amount right at that time. Even if you've budgeted off a little bit, maybe you budgeted $130 for the electric bill, and when the bill comes in, it's $128 and some change. Well, you would just adjust that in the spreadsheet so that you can track all of your spending that way. But when it comes to these categories where you're not paying the entire amount up front, like, again, groceries, gasoline, clothing are 3 of the top type of categories. Well, these should have cash envelopes so that when you go to the bank on payday and you withdraw the money and you put it in the envelope, now the envelope tells you how much you have left to spend instead of trying to track that in a software and trying to reconcile that with your bank account. And last, I'll say this. Use your budget as your roadmap. Right? It's your map. It's your GPS. It's telling you where you're going. Right? So there's no need to look back. You've already done that. So you've mapped it out. You tell your budget, this is how much I need for rent, this is how much I need for utilities, this is how much I need for groceries, and then you pay your bills online or you have them auto draft from your account, and then you have these cash envelopes for any category that you're spending throughout a pay period or throughout a month. And let that be your guide and let it be your GPS, and as you spend, you're looking in the envelope to see how much more you have to go, how much further can you get. And so like I said, I'd encourage you to look at the budget that way as a roadmap, looking ahead versus having to look behind, and switch over to a cash envelope system for anything that you're going to be spending multiple times throughout a pay period or a month so that you're not looking back. And so that's the answer. I don't track what I've spent versus what I have left to spend in any electronic format. Instead, I use a cash envelope system.
Brittany asks, where in the budget should we cut back?
Hi, Brittany. I'm really excited to unpack your question because I think it's really important that each family ask themselves where it is that they can cut back in their budget when they are trying to accomplish either baby steps 1 or 2 of Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. And so baby step 1 being the emergency fund, or baby step 2 being getting yourself out of debt. And you have to look and see, where can we sacrifice? Where can we cut back in the budget so that we can achieve these financial goals? And the answer is, it's going to be different for everybody. But here is the foundation for how you make that decision. I think the first thing everybody needs to do is list out what their needs are of their budget. And the needs are, it's a pretty short list, because the needs really only consist of putting food on the table, consists of keeping a roof over your head and keeping the lights on, and it also consists of getting to and from work so that you can make money to pay for these things. And so that's really about where the needs end. Everything outside of that is really a want. And so then we have to be honest with ourselves about our wants. And some wants are going to be so high up on the list that it's like, we're just going to keep that in the budget because we want it that bad. But other wants are not nearly as important, and they're going to be easier to cut back from. And so only you can answer this for yourself, where you should cut back. But I will share my thoughts on a couple of these categories. So your question is based off of the idea that you would like to start sending your children to private school. And so you're looking for other places to cut in the budget so that you can afford to do that. Now, me personally, I don't believe that a private school education is so much more valuable than a public school education, or even like a charter school, which is still free, but maybe, a little bit more rigorous. And so I would stare at that particular expense. Now, this is just me. I would stare at that expense and really ask, is this so much of a want that I'm willing to put off other financial goals in order to satisfy it? Now, if the answer is yes, that's fine, but really wrestle with the question. And then you go from there. Same thing with when you look at your cell phone bill, how many devices are on it? What kind of features do you have? So is it unlimited high-speed data, or is it limited high-speed data and then it drops to slower data afterwards? And you have to ask yourselves, which features do you really need? Which features do you really want? Because as long as the phone can make a phone call, I'm guessing it satisfies the need. So you have to ask yourself whether these wants are big enough wants to include in the budget, or if they're things that you can get rid of. And so some of the decisions that my wife and I made, just to share, in hopes to inspire you to make some hard decisions. One of the first things we did is we decided to go down to one cell phone. So we actually shared a cell phone for a period of 6 months or so before we made progress on some of our debts. And I decided that, okay, I'll go get a cheap $15 phone that literally only made phone calls, right? And so that was one place where we were able to take our cell phone bill, which we were paying about $150 a month, and get it down to about $80 a month by making that decision. We made a decision to get rid of, at first, we got rid of some packaging from DirecTV because we were still in contract. So we got rid of some packaging to bring the bill down. And once we were out of our contract, we decided to get rid of DirecTV for some time. Now, I think we got rid of it for about a year, and we have it back now. But in that year, we paid off, a number of different debts. And so we made so much traction that it was kind of like a reward, like, hey, good job. And that actually reminds me, any decision you make around what to exclude from the budget now is just a temporary decision. It's something you do for a season so that you can achieve these other financial goals that you might have. And so, for instance, if you know that it's only going to take you about 18 months to 2 years to get out of debt, well, might you make the decision to wait 18 months or 2 years before you put the kids into private school and take on that additional expense? It's just a thought. So any decision you make is a temporary one. It's not permanent. I tell this to my clients all the time when we're talking about cars, right? So maybe they're in a car that they can't afford, and I'm like, sell the car and get something that you can pay cash for. And sure, it's going to be an older car with higher miles, and it might need a little bit of work, but at the end of the day, when you don't have that car payment, you can take that money and really achieve some big financial goals with that. And you don't have to drive the car forever. It's temporary. It's for a season. And that season might last 6 months. It might last a year. It might last 2 or 3 years. But it's just a season. It's a short period of time in an otherwise, much longer, much bigger picture. So, like I said at the start of this, it's really up to you and your family where you're going to cut back, but really identify what your needs cost you every month. So, what's your rent or mortgage costing you? What are your utilities costing you? How much do you have to spend on feeding the family? And how much are you spending on transportation? Those are your needs. Everything else, internet, cell phone, cable, you name it, everything else is a want. And then you have to decide for yourselves, how are you going to prioritize those wants? And the wants that are low on the totem pole, you can just start crossing those off and get rid of those, and really wrestle with the ones that are at the top and ask yourself, do I really want to do this now, or can I wait to do it later? And which things am I willing to give up for a season?
Regan asks, where should I accumulate large sums of money when saving for a down payment on a house?
Hey Regan, this is another really good question, because you want to make sure that you're saving that money, but that you're not dipping into it just willy-nilly while you're trying to save for a big goal like a down payment on the house. And so while it might not be a real attractive option, really a simple savings or checking account is going to do wonders for being able to sock away money, accumulate that money over time, and then go and withdraw that money later without any type of penalties or fees, or it's going to be really liquid. And so that's what you want, is you want something that's going to be extremely liquid, that you can get to when you want and when it's appropriate. And so I would encourage you that this be with a different financial institution than your everyday bank. Because if you set it up with your everyday bank, even if it was a separate checking account, it could be really easy to transfer the money between accounts and kind of get your hands on it, which is exactly what you're trying to avoid. So just simply open up a savings checking or even a money market account with a different financial institution. And because this is for a down payment on a house, and because that's a really big financial goal that you don't want to derail, I would strongly advise you not invest it. So you're not looking to get it into any type of investment, because there's just no guarantee that investment is going to grow, and it's not going to be as liquid. And so it's not an attractive option. You're not going to make money on your money, but at least you're going to put your money in a safe, secure institution where you can get to it when you need it. And so I would strongly encourage you to just open up a separate checking or savings account, or even a money market account, but again, with a separate financial institution than what you have today. And I would not get a debit card linked to it, maybe not even an ATM card. Really kind of force yourself to go into this financial institution to withdraw money, just to kind of put some barriers between you and the money, so that you're not dipping into it just willy-nilly, and that all you're doing is contributing to it, because you could set that up electronically with electronic transfers, or just take the money down and deposit it. But put it far enough away where it's not tempting to go touch it, but not so far away or tied up in something that you can't get your hands on it when you need it. All right, another episode of the Ask Coach Nino Villa show is in the books. I want to thank Rachael, Brittany, and Regan for submitting their questions this week. Be sure to submit your question so I can answer it on a future episode.